Hi, my name is Mark Lawler. I'm Professor of Digital Health at Queen's University Belfast and also co-lead of the Big Data for Complex Disease programme. Delighted to welcome you here today for this interactive session where we're looking really at what are the key areas of health data science that we need to focus on specifically within this programme. This programme is one of 5 Health Data Research UK research driver programmes, and we're really going to have a very interesting discussion bringing together the whole health data science community across the UK in an interactive format and looking at ways in which we can really understand data more clearly and use that to drive our understanding, but also our ability to diagnose and treat complex diseases such as cardiovascular disease and cancer.
So welcome everyone. I think this is probably the first time a lot of you have seen each other on the screen. So PhD students, fellows, PhD supervisors, and a few of the big data team. So we'll all be doing our introductions in the meeting that starts at 10. So we'll leave that until then with the wider group. And for now, I'm going to pass over to Lynn, John, Tom, and Zach to talk to you about data. So unless anyone has anything they want to say just now, I'm going to pass over to Lynn Morris. Thanks very much, Lynn.
Before I start, Kathy, Mark, is there anything you wanted to say?
The only thing I'd like to say is a massive welcome to the students and fellows. We are, and I'm sure this would reflect what Mark might say as well, he might want to add something, but we are really delighted to have the studentships up and running. And you are an amazing bunch, and the more recently appointed fellows, we're so delighted. We had a fantastic response. You came through to be awarded these fellowships amidst competition that we really didn't anticipate. So you are the creme de la creme, and it's really wonderful to have all of you on board. And this is a great opportunity to kind of show you some of the data assets that we have been busy assembling over the last few years to try and surface for you, and to hear a little bit more about your needs, your projects, and in this first meeting to give you an opportunity to network and meet each other, and we hope there'll be much more of this going on. So welcome, it's brilliant to meet you. Yeah,
just to echo what Kathy said, absolutely delighted, and the quality of both fellows and PhD students is really excellent. Also, a lot of you are interested in what were the data assets that we're potentially bringing to bear in this program. So that's one of the reasons why we organized this particular session as well. So really looking forward. I've met most of you online, obviously looking forward to meeting you in person. We'll have an in-person meeting, which you'll hear about later on in the year, but delighted. So pass over to Lynn.
Thanks very much, Mark. Welcome everybody. I'm Lynn Morris, I'm Operations Director at the BHF Data Science Centre. Before John and Tom and Zach get started, I was just going to do a very, very quick intro, mainly from the BHF Data Science Centre standpoint, and you'll hear lots more about other stuff going on in the next meeting. But just so that you can kind of put a few faces and names together and just get an idea of how this is set up. So let me just share my screen. Oh no, wrong screen share. That's the one. And I've lost you all.
We liked the duck, Lynn, actually.
Did you like it? My screensaver.
Yes, really cute.
It's quite sweet, wasn't it? Let me just put this into... Can you see that? Oh, I really have lost everybody. So just to give you a bit of an idea, the Data Science Centre was launched in January 2020. We sit within HDI UK. We get our funding from the BHF. It's a partnership between the two. And essentially it's around enabling data-led research, particularly to improve heart and circulatory health. But we have also through CVD COVID UK, COVID Impact, which you'll hear about, actually been able to support lots of other types of research as well. We have a number of different thematic areas. The ones probably of interest to most of you will be the whole population data, which Angela heads up, and the defining disease that Spiros and Access heads up. But there may be other areas of which are of interest. And we also have a number of catalysts where we've got funding from Diabetes UK, Stroke Association, and Kidney Research UK to do work around particular disease areas. This is just to give you a highlight of some of the people that work there, so you'll know some of them, but you'll obviously know Angela, she's on the call. and Spiros, who I mentioned, who heads up the Defining Disease, and obviously Kathy, who's a director, but also co-director with Mark for Big Data for Complex Disease. And you may come across some of the other people on the slide as well. Importantly, these are the data science team, health data science team that's led by Tom and John. So you'll probably get to know some or all of the people on this screen as you work in the environment. And then I head up an operations team, and probably the important person that you'll get to work with, if you haven't already, is Reuven Prieden, who's our research project manager for the whole population data, which overlaps enormously with the big data for complex disease work. And that is all I really had to say. It was just a very, very quick introduction, just to give you a few ideas of some faces and names, that I can circulate those slides so you can see that. But I'm going to hand over to, I don't know if it's Tom or John first, to actually talk about some of the data and sources. Yeah. Okay, over to you, John.
Great. Thanks, Lynn. Can I just check that everyone can see the slides okay?
Yeah, we can see them well.
Excellent, thank you. So, yeah, hi everyone. Good morning. I'm John Nolan. I'm a senior health data scientist and a member of the BHF Data Science Centre Health Data Science team. So our team provides data science support to all of the various areas of work of the BHF Data Science Centre, and Lynn's just given a quick overview of those. The slides I'll talk through, the focus will very much be on the whole population data work stream, and in particular the CVD COVID UK COVID Impact Consortium, which is a data resource that has been set up to provide access to data for researchers wishing to study the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on cardiovascular disease. So at the latest count, the consortium has over 400 members from across over 50 academic and NHS institutions, over 60 researchers and analysts working on around 59 approved projects and counting, and making use of over 70 data sets available across 3 secure data environments in England, Scotland and Wales. So approved researchers have access to a really wide breadth of data. Primary care data, which is critical for identifying patient cohorts for population-wide studies and for identifying patient characteristics such as patient characteristics, disease history, comorbidities and risk factors such as smoking status and BMI, and also biomarkers such as blood pressure and cholesterol measurements. We also have secondary care data, so hospital admissions, outpatient appointments and accident and emergency attendances. We have death records and community prescribing records. And obviously with the COVID-19 angle required for projects, we also have COVID-19 testing and vaccination data, which is used by almost all projects in the consortium. We have cardiovascular disease registries providing focused data on things like heart failure and myocardial infarction. So we have the NICOR cardiovascular disease audits, and we also have the stroke audit as well in NHS England. In the case of NHS England, more recently, we have also obtained access to maternity and mental health focused data sets as well. So yeah, a really wide breadth of data available to researchers for their projects. So a typical researcher journey runs from developing a project proposal and protocol, moving on to curating the data that is required for the analysis, carrying out the analysis itself before generating the research outputs, which usually a published paper. It has been estimated that the data curation phase of this work can take up to about 80% of the time spent on a project. And one of the main purposes of our team, we think, is to provide support for researchers with this data curation phase and to hopefully speed up that researcher journey and massively reduce the amount of time spent on data preparation. So what do we mean by data preparation or data curation? Basically, we mean that the process of filtering, summarizing, reshaping and combining data from across multiple data sets and data sources into an analysis-ready data set that has been designed to answer a specific research question. So this process can involve data exploration to understand the data sets and to make sure that they are used correctly. It can also include data cleaning and data harmonization. And we try to write all of our data creation pipelines with an emphasis on inbuilt checks and quality assurance of the data as well, which will involve data visualizations as well, all of which can then result in the analysis-ready data set. I'll hand over to Tom now, who's going to talk through some of the resources that our team develops and the data creation support that we provide to projects. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Good morning, everyone. I'm Tom Bolton. I'm a senior health data scientist working in the health data science team. So as John mentioned, I'm going to update on the health data science team's resource generation and project support work for the CVD COVID UK COVID Impact programme, focusing on the NHS England secure data environment, the SDE, where most of our work takes place. Can I just check you can see my slides?
Yeah, you can see the slides.
Thanks, John. So beginning with resource generation, which is being developed in collaboration with analysts working in the environment, several of whom are on the call today. So working within the NHS England SDE, we have notebooks, which include tutorials, data summaries and data insights, which we use as our mechanism for sharing knowledge about data sets. We also have code repositories, which contain the project pipelines, and our team is now in the process of creating a common code repository that will centralize code and make it easier to find and reuse and promote best practice. We're also in the process of creating common curated tables, which will result in more energy efficient computing, with most individual projects not having to run code to generate the same tables. Outside of the SDE, we have the BHF Data Science Centre website, which includes the dataset summary dashboard, which we are maintaining and enhancing. We're also in the process of developing a codeless comparison tool, which will import and compare phenotype code lists from different sources. Of course, code is being exported from the SDE to the BHF Data Science Centre's GitHub organisation to make it more widely available. And within the consortium's shared box folder, we have the data dictionary, collections of documentation for data sets, and best practice guidance that we're working to update. So, for example, adding codeless creation and management guidance and data curation pipeline specification templates. So I'm going to provide a few more details and examples of our work within these areas. So beginning with notebooks. So as I mentioned, notebooks are used to share tutorials, data summaries and data insights, which are driven by our project support work. And the latter shares learnings from our exploratory data analyses and helps avoid duplication of work and ensures that new users can learn from the previous work that's been undertaken. So on screen here, we have data insights for our primary care data set, GDPR, and the screenshots show investigations into the availability of measurements and across GP practices. If we turn to our common code repository, so within the SDE, we now have well over 100 project code repositories, which can make it challenging to find code. So listening to feedback from users, we've started to develop a centralized common code repository to make it easier to find and reuse code. So our team is now working in fortnightly sprints to provide code culminating in a data curation pipeline example. So we're centralizing the code that already exists, but taking the opportunity to update, improve, and optimize the code to promote best practice. So for example, adding doc strings to helper functions, including descriptions, arguments, and examples of how those functions can be used, which will hopefully make the code more accessible to users and lead to greater reuse. Moving on to curated tables. So Angela, who leads our thematic area for whole population data, chaired a really helpful discussion at one of our recent consortium meetings around being more energy efficient within the SDE, and we discussed strategies for reducing the carbon footprint of working with whole population electronic health records, and the efficient use of shared compute resources, which links in with the Green Algorithms Initiative led by colleagues at the University of Cambridge. And one of the ways that our team is contributing to this initiative is to produce common curated tables that can be used by many projects and users, avoiding each project team having to run jobs and use compute to effectively generate the same table. So one example of this is the table of key patient characteristics, where we harmonize and concatenate fields from multiple data sets before applying a selection algorithm to define each characteristic for each individual. And with almost all projects making use of this table, having a common table will reduce the carbon footprint of this computationally intensive job. And again, we've identified the tables that we plan to curate within our team, taking the opportunity to optimize the code and also update the methodology to be in line with the latest research. So on ethnicity data, for example. We'll be making use of the workflows in the SDE to schedule jobs to run overnight to avoid impacting users working on the shared cluster in the day when most users are active. And actually, Fiona and Jamie from our team will be presenting on the common key patient characteristics tables at the consortium update meeting tomorrow morning. We also have the dataset summary dashboard, which hopefully many of you have seen and explored, which is available through our Data Science Centre webpage. And this provides an overview of each of the datasets with overall counts, a searchable data dictionary with variable value labels, descriptions, data coverage plots, data completeness plots, together with the sort of underlying methodologies for these, and also a dataset comparison tool as well. And this is a very useful app for exploring the data that's available within the SDE. Just moving on to the newer CodeList comparison tool. So our team's in the process of generalizing an app that we've created to compare diabetes phenotype code lists. So each column here represents a different code list, and each row is an individual code, with the colors showing the frequency of the code within the SDE and also the type of diabetes. So we can use this tool to compare the codes that have been included in these different code lists by coding terminologies and look at the prevalence of the codes within the data that's available within the SDE. And we're now working to extend this tool to allow the comparison of any code list from the HDR UK phenotype library, Open Safely's open code lists, or any custom text or CSV file containing code list, which will help users determine the appropriate code list for their project and avoid that duplication of effort writing code to wrangle and compare code lists. Just turning to our best practice guidance, finally, I'd also like to mention the work that our team has done for creating and managing code lists. So this approach would see users manage their code lists outside of the SDE. We'd recommend creating an Excel file in the project box folder that includes the URLs or paths to the required code lists. We've created an R script to source these code lists from the phenotype library, open code lists, or local custom files, and then combine these into a master code list that can be easily uploaded to the SDE. So having this input file makes it very transparent, which code lists have been used for the project, and much easier to manage, encouraging the sort of pushing and pulling from the HDR UK phenotype library. And we can also add relevant checks to this process to identify any code list issues at source before any compute is used in the SDE. I'd also like to mention the data curation pipeline specification templates that we've been working on. So these can be used to record the information that's needed to develop the data curation pipeline. So for example, for covariates, the minimum and maximum coverage dates, minimum and maximum values, diagnostic coding positions, selection of the earliest or latest record. And we also have options for users to select existing curated phenotypes, such as the COVID-19 trajectory phenotypes. And again, this recording is very transparent and can really help accelerate the data curation work, having all this information in one source. So turning now to the project support work that our team provides. So John showed the typical project journey, and of course there are many more stages within and between these, but the Health Data Science team is supporting and helping to accelerate projects from the beginning to the end of this journey. The NHS England Data Wrangler team are also available to provide technical support with the environment and help answer general questions about data sets. And we will collaborate to provide the best support to users. But the Health Data Science team is supporting the protocol stage, which can involve our team undertaking scoping work to help assess the feasibility of proposed projects. And this scoping work goes beyond what's available within the dataset summary dashboard. So examples include heart failure and diabetes scoping, OPCS4 trends and availability in HES, and comparison of the HES records to the published numbers for the diagnostic imaging dataset. And even simple questions here that can turn out to be more complex when we take into account the potential limitations of some of the provisioned data sets and how they may impact the research question. But most of our focus is on the data curation stage. So our team provides different levels of data curation support to projects, from signposting to the resources that I described earlier, pointing out that those that are most relevant to the project and promoting the reuse of existing code. We also provide guidance. So, for example, we have a project that's utilising newly environmental data that's been made available in the SDE. So in this case, the project team knew exactly what they wanted their final analysis data set to look like. It's shown here with dummy data, essentially to have daily records for each patient to study the interaction of air temperature and pollution with COVID-19 and the impact on CVD risk. But the team were unsure about how this might be achieved in practice in the SDE. So our team was able to break this down and advise that the pipeline would need to carefully combine 8 curated tables. And we produced a data curation workflow of how the analysis data sets might be generated, illustrating the process stage by stage with dummy data, and provided functions and code that the project team could utilize for more novel parts of this pipeline. We also have our exploratory work. So for example, data exploration of the maternity services dataset, which, as this data model shows, is a very complex data set to navigate with many connected tables. And we can share these explorations with the project teams to inform how the data can be curated and best utilized and linked and combined with other data sources. We then have development of the data curation pipelines, so both in part and in full, which draws on the existing code repositories, the curated tables, using the raw data together with the combined code list and pipeline specification to produce the data curation pipelines that generate the analysis-ready tables, as well as a host of check tables, figures, reports for the project team to scrutinize to promote greater transparency and accelerate that project journey. Finally, we're also reviewing the data curation pipelines that have been produced by analysts, and we've been able to help refactor code which was taking around 7 hours to run to make it more efficient, with the process now taking around 10 minutes, which was actually essential for this particular project because the code needed to be run and applied repeatedly to many outcomes. We also support the analysis stage of the project journey, and our team's leading several analyses within the SDE. But an example of the support that we've provided is a dashboard that we've created for the CCU 72 project to help visualize the initial results, which involved studying 4 epidemiological metrics for around 90 disease outcomes. And we've now extended this to include subgroup analyses of these outcomes by key patient characteristics as well. Of course, we're reviewing the research outputs as well, particularly the method sections which describe how the data is being used. And we're also providing general support to all users and helping with the SD development. So we're continually feeding back to the NHS England Data Wrangler team, the platform team, and user research teams on behalf of the SD users to resolve data quality or environment issues and guide the development of the SD to help improve the experience for all users. Thank you very much. I'll hand back to John.
Great, thanks, Tom. So yeah, Tom has just described the code and resources our team has been developing through our work supporting projects in the CVD COVID UK COVID Impact Consortium. But I guess I just wanted to highlight in this section that the resources we develop are disease agnostic and can be applied to other disease areas as well. So our team is also starting to support projects that are active in the DataCan environment as well. So DataCan is a HDR UK hub which aims to make high quality health data more accessible for cancer research. Like the CVD COVID UK consortium, DataCan has an NHS England secure data environment which is set up to facilitate COVID-19 focused projects exploring the impact of the pandemic on the referral, diagnosis, treatment and outcomes for patients with cancer. The DataCan SD provides access to cancer-specific datasets, namely the National Cancer Registrations dataset, rapid cancer registrations, which supplement the data and provide as up-to-date information as possible, radiotherapy and chemotherapy or systemic anti-cancer therapy datasets, and also a cancer waiting times dataset as well. And so this slide shows a comparison of the datasets available in the CVD COVID UK environment and the DataCan environment. And as this slide shows, there's a lot of overlap between the two. DataCan and CVD COVID UK both have equivalent primary care, secondary care and deaths data. This means that we can apply much of the same code we use, for example, to gather key patient characteristics from across these sources, and also the same code to derive patient comorbidities, outcomes, and biomarkers from the primary and secondary care records for projects. COVID-19 testing data is slightly more limited in the DataCan SDE, but we can still adapt and apply the same code that we've used to harmonise COVID-19 infection records from across all those data sources that are available. Worth noting that COVID-19 vaccination data is not available in DataCan, so a potential limitation there for COVID-19 studies, as it will not be possible to derive a patient's vaccination status. Also worth noting, there is a slightly greater breadth of data available in the CVD COVID UK consortium with the addition of things like the maternity and mental health focused data sets. We want to make all of the resources that Tom has just described available in DataCan as well as in the CVD COVID UK consortium. So we already have equivalent data dictionaries and data summary notebooks in the DataCan SDE, and we will be producing cancer-focused data insight notebooks as we support more projects and develop methodologies and knowledge of the data sets. That's data dictionaries and screen grabs of the data summary notebooks as well. Going forward, we also want to make available all the coding demos and the reusable data curation code from the HDS Common repository, and also the common curated tables as described by Tom. We want to make these available in DataCan as well as in the CVD COVID UK environment. So at the moment, the process is for code to be copied out of the CVD COVID UK consortium to our BHF Data Science Centre GitHub before then being copied and pasted into the DataCan SDE. But as the secure data environment develops, we hope to be able to transfer code and resources by using the GitLab accounts in the two instances of the SDE. And we're working with the NHS England team to try and get that functionality in place. So yeah, just to emphasize that by supporting work and developing resources in DataCan, our team is laying a foundation for supporting the work of the Big Data for Complex Disease driver program, and that given the disease agnostic nature of the code, these resources might also be applicable to other driver programs that make use of electronic health records as well. I'm just going to hand on to Zach now, who's going to provide a bit more of an in-depth view of the work that is being carried out in DataCan and Vicore.
Thanks very much, John. Can you see the slides?
Yeah.
Brilliant. What a great overview of the work the data science team are doing. Every time I say it, I'm always shocked and amazed at just how the breadth that we've covered. So I'm going to talk about the DataCan projects briefly, discuss in a little bit more detail some of the challenges that we've had with cancer data within the NHS England SDE, give a brief introduction to the virtual oncological cardiology research initiative, dubbed Vicore, and try and discuss or show everyone how we're going to use these three different programs of work to leverage collaboration, code reuse and data to help deliver on the Big Data for Complex Diseases program. So within the DataCan environment, we have a couple of projects. First project will be, yeah, there we go, investigating the effect of COVID-19 on cancer referrals, diagnosis and treatments and outcomes in England. And this project has gone through what John and Tom have shown. They've had a proposal, they've had a curation plan, and this particular project has an analysis ready data set for the researcher to then continue and do their analysis on the project, just highlighting the fact that we support the data curation phase of the work. Other projects include investigating the reliability and comparative effectiveness estimates using cancer registry data before and after the COVID-19 pandemic. And the interesting aspect of this project is because of challenges with current cancer tables within the SDE, this project has not been able to continue at the rate that it should have. So we've had to go and address those challenges with NHS England to work in collaboration to understand what the project needs, how the data is set up, and what changes that we need to make to ensure the project can complete. And finally, reoccurrence of ovarian cancers in patients in the context of COVID-19. So this project is going through the curation phase, the planning of the curation, where we're able to bring in common code that Tom and John have mentioned, data assets, key patient characteristics, and reuse that code within the DataCan environment to support the project. Challenges within the DataCan SDE and specifically around cancer registration data have been mainly around linkage. So, for example, to link the registration data with the SAC data, there are important primary keys missing from the data set, and this has caused a block for some projects. But as we collaborate and discuss these issues with NHS England, there's been a change to the cancer tables, which is coming through, and that'll be a restructured set of analysis ready tables, which will make it easier for the research to continue and for analysts to use the data. So pending the delivery of this new organised set of data sets, we'll be performing checks and making sure that it meets the needs of the research projects, which is a very important step to carry out. And to highlight that, it is sometimes a tall ladder to climb, but at the top of that ladder, there is well-curated, research-ready data that we can use to answer the important research questions that we have. And this is a good example of a real good collaboration effort between national bodies and different academic institutions. So VICORI, which I mentioned as the Virtual Cardio-Oncological Research Initiative, is another adjacent programme that has been happening for a number of years. I'm not going to read out the names of the projects there, but it's been led by Professor David Adlam, who is part of the Big Data for Complex Diseases programme. And the data assets that they've been using have been within the cancer analysis system, which is now part of NHS England. What is available there are cancer data sets that John has mentioned previously, and some cardiovascular data sets as well. And if you want to find out more information about the specifics of that and these projects, I would suggest getting in touch with David or myself afterwards. So to summarise, the collaboration efforts between the Data Science Centre, LabPH.UK, VICORI, and DataCan is paving the foundational, the foundation for being able to deliver on the Big Data for Complex Diseases programme. And by leveraging data science curation code and data assets on complex data pipelines, they'll be able to deliver research-ready analysis tables for researchers who will be able to answer their interesting questions that they want to answer. And ultimately, that will lead to better patient outcomes. So that will conclude my review of the H3UK, VICORI, DataCan, and BHF inputs to the programme. I'm not sure who I'm handing back to.
You can hand back to me, Zach.
Thanks, Ellen.
Great. Absolutely fantastic presentations from all of you. Hopefully really, really helpful for everyone here. Yeah, thank you so much for taking the time. And I'm going to open the floor to questions now. Make the most of the expertise we have in the room. Mark.
While our shy fellows and shy PhD students are thinking about questions to ask, just to highlight, I think, this is a huge opportunity. I've said it in the chat, but I just re-emphasize it. There's a huge amount of work that's been done by everybody who presented, and this is really a big opportunity for you as fellows and PhD students to take advantage and to ride that wave, if you like, because there are really great resources, great opportunities, code, etc. And so really would encourage you to engage with us, talk to us about different projects, look at ways in which we can work together, because really there is this is a resource that I think is unrivaled, certainly in the UK and probably elsewhere as well. So great opportunity for us to really do something significant here.
Thanks, Mark. Kathy.
Yeah, maybe I'll just come in and predict what I think some of the questions that might be on people's minds are that they might be a bit fearful of asking because they're the old difficult chestnuts. So when I look at these presentations, well, the first thing I feel is immense pride in our health data science team because they are completely amazing. And it's a very small group, actually. They work very closely with Angela and a number of others in terms of, and with NHS England. But, it started off with just 2 and it's kind of grown to about 8 people. But when you consider that, for example, the UK Health UKHSA, UK Health Security Agency has 500 analysts and NICE has about 40, and Open Safely I think have about 40 or so, 40 software developers. It's a very small team working very efficiently and effectively to support a very broad range of work, so just hats off to them. But in terms of sort of some of the issues that maybe come up, when one looks, for example, at that slide that shows the comparison of the data available in the BHF Data Science Centre facilitated bubble in the NHS SDE and the DataCam facilitated bubble, the immediate sort of question on my mind is, well, or the immediate question, the immediate kind of reaction from me is, well, if you just fuse those two together, wouldn't it be like just so much easier for everyone to answer some of the questions? So that's one question that might be on your mind. And the other is, what about the COVID restriction around some of these data? So just to kind of go into a little bit of detail about that, both the BHF Data Science Centre and DataCan efforts were set up during COVID and have got specific permissions to use the data for COVID-related research. This is because some of the most precious and helpful data sets, in particular the primary care data, which is not perfect, but it forms a really important foundation for many projects, have been provided under specific COVID-specific legislation. Now, there is a huge amount of work going on behind the scenes to try and change that, coming in at a range of different angles, including some work I'm doing on a review for UK government. But actually, there's lots of strands of work. And from what I'm hearing just yesterday, for example, at an industry forum with NHS England, Department of Health and others, things are moving forward in the right direction. Nothing like fast enough for you and me and everything that we want to do, but definitely moving in the right direction. So I think there is promise that beyond COVID approvals for some of these currently COVID restricted data sets will start to emerge over the coming months and years. In the meantime, though, we do have to work with what we've got and develop the best workarounds to triangulate across these environments as possible. So the other restriction that you're probably aware of, the other issue is the beyond. So that's the beyond COVID bit. The other bit is the capabilities within the environment to kind of skip between environments or virtually or actually fuse them together. And this is something that Mark and I and others have been discussing and pushing for or at least 2 years, I think, Mark, isn't it? Probably 3, because it feels to us like a total no-brainer. And I have to say that under the leadership of Tom, John, Lynn, and others within and beyond the BHF Data Science Centre, we are making progress on that aspect as well, in terms of trying to help NHS England with its capacity and efficiency issues, so that we can absorb more approvals under one large umbrella and one large programme for more people, and have the sort of pinch points and pain points encountered by as few people as possible. We're definitely having some traction there, and when we take a number of options and lay them out to NHS England, it's pretty clear what the obvious options to choose are, but there's quite a lot of process and bureaucracy that has to go on behind the scenes within NHS England, who are being pulled this way and that in different directions. So I do have a lot of sympathy with their kind of challenges as well. But just to reassure you, we're making significant progress with both of those kind of key aspects. However, I do think for your projects, it's really important to look at what there is now and be highly pragmatic. Now, that doesn't mean that your projects have to entirely focus on the resources that are being discussed today. There are other resources that all of you have access to, including, for example, CPRD and Open Safely. And as many of you may know, for those of you who work with or are involved with Open Safely, there are moves afoot to move Open Safely forward onto a beyond COVID footing. But actually, it turns out that although the announcement about that initiative and that direction of travel was made in October last year, it's still kind of going through the motions of being put in place. So getting the relevant legislation and governance in place turns out to be complicated, even for quite sophisticated projects. So have patience with the system. Be pragmatic and agile, and think about how many of your questions can be asked through a COVID lens, because COVID has been affected by just about everything and is relevant to just about everything. But it's really important that that's done in a focused way that's convincing for approvals bodies and panels and so on. And we are also here, Lynn, Reuven and the team, to help with those aspects of your work as well. So I'll shut up now, and hopefully that might flush out a few more questions.
Thanks, Kathy. I can see Genevieve's got a hand up.
Can you hear me okay? Yeah, okay. Yeah, I apologize. I realized I've left my microphone on earlier, and I hope you didn't hear me complaining in French about my internet connection. I had a power cut this morning just before this. So my question is about, so if it's COVID impact, can I access the Welsh data? So I had some discussion with, I think, Ashley, and it's not very clear to me.
Yes, you can. For COVID impact. Yes. Okay. So
Yeah.
So what happened was when we originally set this up through the BHF Data Science Centre, we established a project called CVD COVID UK, which was basically the bi-directional kind of effects of cardiovascular disease and its risk factors on COVID and vice versa. That was about as broad as we thought we could go in the first instance. And then that was with NHS England, and we sort of cut similar deals, if you like, with the environments in Scotland and Wales, and have continued to work on opening that up within Northern Ireland as well. We then extended to cover other diseases in relation to COVID. So basically COVID star health is covered by COVID impact, but that is only in NHS England. And we had resistance from our colleagues in Scotland and Wales to extend in the same way. So there are ways of addressing non-cardiovascular questions through the Scottish and Welsh environments through sort of external or aligned, if you like, partnerships, which, for example, we exploited for work you were involved in, spearheading, Genevieve, the Coalesce project on under-vaccination across the 4 nations of the UK. But we can't use the CVD COVID UK agreements to do non-cardiovascular work in Scotland and Wales currently. So that's another, I'm afraid, layer of kind of regulatory
Is there any way, Cassie, that I could help? Is there any way that I could help?
Genevieve, maybe I can take this. Genevieve, maybe I can take this offline with you, because I've been working with Ashley and the team in relation to specifically in cancer. So maybe let's take it offline and look to see what's possible. Certainly, I'd be keen to look at ways in which we can facilitate. Okay.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, I want just to add that I'm happy to help as well facilitate those access.
Yeah. No. Thank you very much.
I think that's great, Genevieve, and we've actually seen, I mean, you've got experience of working across these environments, and in particular the NHS England one, and also doing some work at Open Safely. So you yourself are a very important resource for everyone else. So it's really good to have that offer of help. And I note that you've already reached out to some of the HDR UK tech support teams to look at how your project, which is aiming to operate across different environments, can be used as a test case. So Mark and I and others will be Angela, etc., will be absolutely on hand to help you. I mean, we should be doing this for all the projects, actually use them as case exemplars of how can you do this? How can I get this done given the current constraints, and how can I push the boundaries and use my project or my energy as a way of saying, well, surely this must be possible. And that's how we get things done, right? We use projects as exemplars. So it's a really important offer. Thanks.
So Genevieve, if you just drop us an email, okay, and we'll move things on from there, okay? Thanks very much.
Yeah, I also want to add, I had 10 years of experience using Scottish data as well, so I have quite a network there too, but I know you probably have those contacts as well.
No, not at all. No, that's great, Genevieve. The more the merrier.
It's important as well, because a familiar face always helps in a foreign land, as it were. So I think it, you know, people are always happier to work with someone who they feel they can trust because they know they've worked with them for a number of years. So it's a really good way to get started.
Any more questions? Ramesh?
Thanks, Alan. I don't know if you can hear me okay. So first of all, I want to say thanks very much for the excellent presentations, and it is humbling to see the opportunities we have and the data sets we have available to try and answer important questions. Having not been part of the kind of proposal and protocol process and the whole sort of developmental pipeline within the ST before, I just wanted to understand a little bit about the timelines around when we submit proposals or when we work on proposals, and then actually then being moving forward to actually being able to work with the data thereafter.
Do you want to pick that one up, Lynn?
Yeah, I can do. So normally we have, so it has to go to our Approvals and Oversight Board, any proposal, which includes representatives of the relevant secure data environments or trusted research environments, and also what we call representatives of the data controllers. So those are much more of a scientific review of representatives of the universities that access the actual SDE. But also importantly, it goes to our patient and public panel. So that everything is done by email apart from the patient and public panel, where we ask researchers to come along and just provide a brief overview of what they're trying to do, and also then be able to answer questions from the patient's representatives. So what we tried to do is ask, so we've run one of those meetings per month. We can run additional ones if we think we're going to get a lot of projects in. So actually, if people let us know up front, we like to give about 2 weeks notice, more so that we can do a bit of a triage. It might be less so for these projects because we kind of all know about you. You've heard about some of the resources, you know Tom and John and some of the other members of the team now. So actually probably contacting them up front and understanding what can and can't be done will probably be more iterative. But we do like to give at least a week's notice before for the patients and public to actually just review. We ask for a plain English summary so they can actually review what you're trying to do. And then we have the meeting, the minutes are written up and it goes out by email to other members of the panel. And ideally it's reviewed within another couple of weeks. So maybe within about a month it's reviewed, and then as long as you've got all your training in place, we can request access for you and get you set up. So in theory, it should be pretty quick turnaround. If there are particular issues, or if somebody has a particular issue from the Approvals and Oversight Board, then we'll work with you to work through that to make sure that we can expedite getting you through that approval process. But it should be much quicker than, say, going through a DARS application.
So a few weeks rather than months.
A few weeks,
Ramesh.
Yeah. But if anybody has any questions,
I think in summary that's just very fast, isn't it?
Yeah.
Just very fast. So I mean, so that's very good. Thanks very much.
Just contact us if you've got any questions about it. We'll happily answer your questions.
But I was also wondering then if there was a certain amount of, I presume we would work collaboratively with members of the team before we'd actually submit the protocol anyway. So I think that, that's probably the best idea, so that you know exactly. Yeah, I think Tom and John in particular are keen that they can provide that, or members of their team can provide advice of what's doable and what's not, and things to think about before you get. But we've got proposal templates if you want to have a look at that, or we might be able to share some other proposals that have gone through if people are worried about what to put in. We can help you with that as well.
We have kind of we have put some funding from the Big Data for Complex Disease programme into the Health Data Science team, specifically to ensure that the students and fellows on this programme have the support they need to understand and access these resources, and to get support on the necessary kind of curation pipelines and so on. So you have some kind of priority status in terms of that kind of pipeline, although it tends to work pretty well for most people anyway. Angela, it might be worth you just outlining how things work in terms of collaborative support across the consortium from people who are already active in the environment, because that's very much something we encourage, isn't it?
Absolutely, and I think there are many people on this call who already work within that kind of framework of bringing different people together, working on similar projects. And even looking in this room, I know that I'm engaged with other people at the start of their PhD. So within the consortium, we have these monthly meetings where you can hear about people's progress. I hope that many of you on the call now, though I don't recognise everyone's been to that meeting yet, could start joining, and you'll learn about what other people are doing and learn the latest projects, and hear from the Health Data Scientist team as well of their latest things which might be applicable to you. So I really invite you to join that consortium.
There's a good Slack channel as well, which tends to kind of grapple in real time with technical and analytic issues and so on, and you get the NHS England data wranglers, Tom, John, Zach and the team addressing queries very swiftly, or you get other consortium members saying, oh yeah, I've dealt with that one, this is how you do it. So that's a really useful channel to join as well, just so you can kind of dock in and find out how to get problems solved quickly.
Great, thanks very much all for those. I think seeing as we've got another meeting, which a few of you are going to be joining coming up at 10, we'll wrap it up there, unless anyone's got anything burning that they want to ask. And thanks so much to John, Tom, Zach and Lynn for speaking. That was absolutely brilliant and lovely to see you all for the first time, fellows and PhDs.